So Ma Jun has presented a really inspiring example and model of how to work in the situation in China. So I want to first of all make a comment that developing participation and transparency in China is a very, very challenging task, and many different movements have tried to do so. The public health movement, the pro-democracy movement, land seizure issues. Many people with many issues have tried to do it, but I think that Ma Jun has been the most successful in that particular environment in developing transparency and participation to the highest point that civil society has done so far. Now, obviously, this is politically very sensitive and risky. So one of the questions that we might ask is, why is it possible to do this around the issue of the environment? I think the answers are complicated, but some of the things that he has told us illuminate that. He's working with a priority of the central government. He's using government data. He's serving a public interest. At the same time, there's a deep well of public dissatisfaction around this environment issue. He's drawing upon that. So I just want to highlight kind of the way the model works within the Chinese situation, and invite any more comment you might have, because this is obviously risky. It has, from the government's point of view, its risky side if it gets out of control. So you must sometimes hear messages from authorities saying, don't carry this beyond some certain point. Second question, a question, maybe first question, that may not be a question, but a question is, your model relies a lot on the data from the national and local environmental protection agencies of China. These are relatively new, relatively weak organizations that are even more than you are able to be influenced by. They are more likely than you to receive messages from local government saying, don't do this report because it's going to hurt us. How good are the reports that you're putting up on your website? How satisfied are you with those reports? Another question I want to ask is, the government agencies from time to time come to you and say, don't embarrass this particular enterprise because we need the jobs. This relates to a generic issue about environmental protection, which is that it costs money. It hurts people's other human rights because it slows down economic development. How do you answer? I'm not saying I believe it, but I'm saying it's an argument that's often made. How do you answer? Do you get into that argument when they come to you and say, we need the jobs? Do you tell them, well, it's costing you more than it's worth? Or do you just say, I don't care about the jobs, I'm only interested in the environment? Finally, I'd like to raise the following question. We often hear that China's ahead of the United States and this, that, and the other thing, and they're going to rule the world. It seems like your organization is ahead of us in promoting make a green choice for the future methodology of mobilizing society. And I wonder if you have any comments for how we can advance your model into the promotion of environmental issues outside of China. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew, for all these insights and comments and questions. You have to remind me of some of the questions you asked. I got really but let me start it by saying that we do have some different contexts in China, so we have to put it in mind. And I think the #1 challenge we are having in China is there's a huge gap of trust between the NGOs and some of the most important stakeholders. The government is one of them, business is the other. You know, now our #1 challenge is how to bridge that gap. It's never easy. But as an NGO, we decided that there are several things that we could work on which could help that build up the trust. I mean, one of that is stick to the target, stick to the goals. You know, there are all these different kind of temptations here and there, but we stick to the environmental target. That's our legitimacy. And we're going to start it. You know, we're going to stick to that, and this is an important aspect. So, and secondly, we try to be professional. You know, try to understand what we're talking about. It's very, very important. That will give you some further legitimacy. You know, it's extremely important in China. And then third part is try to be collaborative. Try to not to surprise. You know, always surprise everyone. You know, try to keep everyone some updated about, you know, before you leap, make a major leap. For example, that index we did with NRDC, you know, we did kind of consult a little bit beforehand, saying that you know, NGOs had never done that obviously before to assess the performance of government. So could we do something like that? And the message, you know, is that not from the government itself, but from those who can, you know, better read through that, and they kind of say, look, you could do that, but do it in a quantitative way rather than a qualitative way. You know, you gotta, everything gotta come out of a kind of a calculation based on some complicated formulas. Otherwise, we won't accept that. You know, every kind of score you make, you gotta give me a quantitative reason behind that. So, but thanks to all this work, you know, every day we're collecting all this data. Every year we got some 15,000 records of violations. So based on that, we could check who are disclosing what in how timely way, whether it's comprehensive, the integrity of the data, and all this. So user friendliness. So we developed this matrices to do that, and they kind of accepted that. They actually came to our launching ceremony, you know, launch of each year's report, and we organized all this training, you know, to share best practice. So that's how we, you know, in some way move forward. I think you also try to ask about the data quality. You know, the quality, I would say, is troublesome. You know, in China, not just environmental data, but all the data, you know, there. This way or that way, have some gaps there. But I happen to believe that if they say, you know, all this, half of our waterways are badly polluted, and then if they say, you know, more than a quarter of our major cities cannot meet the modest air quality standards, if they say, you know, 12 million tons of food crops contaminated by heavy metals, I think that's, you know, good enough, at least for us, to try to mobilize our people. Say, look, you know, everyone agree with this, and rather than ending up into a kind of academic, conceptualized, you know, kind of debate, those are very important, but we can start from here. That's, you know, one of the reasons that we made this huge compromise from day one to stick to government-sourced data. Because we, as an organization, started with 3 people. We don't have the capacity to verify each case. We want to give a fair say to all the companies we listed there. But then we can guarantee that we are accurate on the data source. You know, the source are clearly logged, and it's an open source data. You are openly accused of breaking the Chinese law, and do you own the public kind of a response to that? You can make self-defense. No problem. We can run that. But most of them came here. They choose to explain what went wrong, how they try to fix their problem. You know, sometimes probably those bad polluters, they should have 10 kind of a penalty fines each year, but they only ended up having 1, or kind of. But I kind of believe over the past 6, 7, 8 years, if it is a real bad polluter in putting into our situation, now with these legal requirements for this monitoring and disclosure, they can't hide that forever. You know, they can't cover it up to all the people. They can cover that up for a while to some people, but can't forever. So sooner or later, we're going to got them there. And we use that as an entry point to engage those, you know, major stakeholders. You know, today started with brands, but in the future, investors and bankers and other, you know, many other ways we could engage with them. Remind me of the other questions if you have. Truly appreciate it.